They lowered his coffin into the ground, and just as the priest's voice echoed the final prayer, my phone buzzed in my hand. One glance at the screen and my knees nearly buckled. I'm still alive. Don't trust anyone. The words burned into my eyes, hotter than the tears already streaming down my cheeks. I blinked once, twice, but the message didn't vanish. It sat there on my screen like a cruel joke. My husband's name lit up in bold letters at the top of the message chain. But how? The chapel was silent except for the sniffles of mourners and the shuffling of feet. The choir hummed low in the background, their hymn vibrating through the wooden pews. In front of me, the coffin lay still, draped in white lilies. My husband of 30 years, gone, or so they said. The man I had nursed through fevers, cooked for, fought with, loved, and buried my best years alongside. And yet here I was, staring at a text message that read like he was whispering from the grave. A tremor ran through me. My daughter, seated beside me, tightened her grip on my hand. "Mom, are you okay?" she whispered. I forced my lips into a weak smile. Yes, just overwhelmed. But inside I wasn't okay. I wasn't overwhelmed. I was terrified. I tucked the phone into my lap, glancing around the church. Who had seen it? Who could have sent it? My eyes darted over the mourners, the neighbors from down the street, my husband's colleagues, a few distant relatives who barely showed up when he was alive but now wailed the loudest. And then there was his brother. He sat at the far end of the pew, face like stone, refusing to meet my eyes. His jaw clenched, shoulders tense, as though he knew something no one else did. The priest's voice broke through my spiraling thoughts. "We commend his soul to the heavens. May his memory live on." My phone buzzed again. Another message. "Don't sign anything. Watch your back." I gasped softly, so quietly I hoped no one heard. My daughter frowned at me. "Mom?" "I'm fine," I whispered, though my heart pounded like a drum in my chest. The service dragged on, but I couldn't hear a word of it. My mind replayed the texts over and over. I'm still alive. Don't trust anyone. Don't sign anything. What did it mean? Was someone playing a cruel prank? Or, God forbid, had my husband faked his death? The coffin was lowered into the ground. The crowd shuffled outside to toss roses onto the casket. I followed in a daze, gripping my purse as though it contained the last thread holding me to reality. As I bent to throw my rose, a shadow brushed past me. I felt the slightest tug at my bag. I jerked back. Nobody looked at me, nobody flinched. But when I opened my purse later, I found it. An envelope. Plain, unmarked, heavy. My stomach twisted. Back at the reception, I tried to act normal. I shook hands. I thanked people for coming. I endured the hugs and the whispered, "Stay strong" comments. But my eyes kept darting to the envelope in my purse, and to my husband's brother, who kept glancing at me with something colder than grief. Then came the final blow of the day. As guests began to leave, my son, my own flesh and blood, slid a folder across the kitchen counter. His voice was gentle, too gentle. "Mom, you should just sign these. It's for the estate transfer. Dad wanted us to handle things quickly. It'll make life easier." The words stabbed me like ice. Don't sign anything. I stared at the folder, at his pleading eyes. My hands trembled. Was he grieving, or was he pushing me into a trap? "Not now," I whispered. He sighed, almost too heavily. "Mom, don't make this harder than it already is." But I pushed the folder back. "Not now." For the first time, I saw something in his eyes I had never seen before. Frustration laced with something darker. Something like impatience. That night, alone in my room, I finally opened the envelope. Inside were old photographs, grainy and yellowed, showing my husband with people I didn't recognize. Handwritten notes scribbled in his unmistakable script. Meetings arranged, papers hidden, keep her safe. And at the bottom, one page stood out. A bank document. The date on it was stamped just last week. My husband's signature scrawled across the bottom. My hands shook so violently the paper nearly slipped from my fingers. Last week, after he was supposed to be dead. I clutched the paper to my chest, rocking back and forth. If this was real, if this was true, then nothing in my life was what I thought it was. I stared at the glowing phone screen again. I'm still alive. Don't trust anyone. I had no idea where this path was leading. But I knew one thing. From this moment on, I couldn't afford to trust a soul. Not my in-laws, not even my children, and certainly not the man I thought I had buried. But before we go deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming shocking stories. The night after the funeral was one of the longest of my life. I sat at the edge of my bed, the dim lamp throwing weak shadows against the walls, clutching my husband's old sweater to my chest. The house was quiet. Too quiet, except for the low hum of the refrigerator and the occasional creak of wood, as if the walls themselves were shifting with grief. My eyes burned from tears, but I couldn't sleep. Not with those texts seared into my mind. I'm still alive. Don't trust anyone. Don't sign anything. Watch your back. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the words glowing on my phone screen. I picked up the envelope again, spread its contents across the quilt. Photographs, yellowing with age, of my husband shaking hands with men I didn't know. One in particular stood out. A tall man in a sharp suit, his hand clasping my husband's in a firm shake. Both of them looking straight at the camera like they were sealing a deal. On the back of the photo, in my husband's handwriting, were 3 words: "Trust him not." My blood chilled. Why would my husband keep these? And why send them to me now? Or have someone slip them into my purse at his funeral? I didn't hear the floorboard creak outside my room until it was too late. The door opened slightly and my son's voice drifted in, soft but urgent. "Mom, you're still awake?" I scrambled, shoving the photos and papers back into the envelope, tucking it under my pillow. My voice came out shaky. "Yes, sweetheart, just couldn't sleep." He stepped into the room, his eyes shadowed, his suit from the funeral still wrinkled on his shoulders. He looked older than his years, his jaw tight, the grief weighing heavily on him. Or maybe it wasn't just grief. "I know it's hard," he said, his tone rehearsed. "But the estate lawyer said the sooner we process the documents, the smoother it will be for all of us. Dad wouldn't want things dragged out." I forced a weak smile. "I told you earlier. Not now." He sighed, lips pressed thin. Then with a shrug that felt too casual for a day like this, he said, "Fine. Tomorrow then." And he walked out, closing the door softly behind him. But as his footsteps faded down the hallway, a thought twisted in my gut. Was he grieving or waiting? The following morning, the house filled with the smell of coffee and the low murmur of voices. My daughter and son were already seated at the kitchen table when I came down, both of them strangely tense. A folder sat between them, the same one from the night before. "Mom," my daughter began gently, "we're just trying to help. Dad left a lot behind. Bills, accounts, the house. If we delay too long, it'll cause problems." Her voice cracked and tears welled in her eyes. For a moment, my heart softened. She was my baby after all. Could she truly be part of something sinister? But then I remembered the text, "Don't sign anything. Don't." I shook my head firmly. I need time. That's all. My son's jaw tightened. Time for what? There's nothing to think about. It's just paperwork. His words were sharp, too sharp, like the edge of a blade. My daughter shot him a warning glance, but he leaned back, folding his arms, his eyes boring into mine with something between frustration and impatience. The phone in my pocket buzzed. I excused myself, heart pounding as I walked into the hallway. I pulled it out, shielding the screen. Another message. They will pressure you. Stall. Protect yourself. The phone nearly slipped from my hands. Whoever was sending these messages knew exactly what was happening inside my house. By afternoon, my head spun with paranoia. Every look, every word from my children felt loaded. My husband's brother hadn't called since the funeral, but I couldn't shake the way his eyes avoided mine in the chapel. And the neighbors, oh, how they whispered. I caught Mrs. Callahan from across the street watching me from behind her curtain, her lips moving as she spoke on the phone, no doubt feeding gossip about the widow who seemed unsettled. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, but fear kept me silent. Instead, I took the envelope and drove to the library, the last place anyone in my family would expect me to go. I sat in a quiet corner, scanning through the documents again. The bank statement bore a date too recent, signed in my husband's unmistakable scrawl. But according to the death certificate, he had already been gone for 3 weeks. So who was lying? The bank or the grave? That evening, when I returned home, the house was buzzing with voices. My children, their cousins, even my husband's sister were gathered in the living room. Papers spread across the coffee table, hushed whispers cutting off as soon as I walked in. I froze in the doorway. What's going on? My son cleared his throat. We're just organizing Dad's affairs. Without me? My voice cracked. You've been through so much, my husband's sister said smoothly, standing to pat my arm. Her perfume wafted around me, cloying and suffocating. We thought we'd take care of the heavy lifting. You can just sign what needs signing. Her smile was too wide, her eyes too sharp. My stomach knotted. I'll review everything myself, I said firmly, snatching a few papers from the table. The room went quiet. My son's face darkened. My daughter looked away. The sister's hand lingered on my arm a second too long before she pulled back, her smile faltering. That night, my phone buzzed again. They're circling. Do not give them control. I barely slept. Dreams twisted into nightmares, each one worse than the last. My husband clawing his way out of the coffin, my children tearing documents from my hands, strangers in dark suits whispering in my ear. By dawn, I was trembling. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at my husband's photo framed on the wall. His smile seemed mocking now, like he knew a secret I wasn't privy to. My daughter padded in, her hair messy from sleep, and sat across from me. She reached for my hand. Mom, you don't trust us, do you? She whispered. My throat tightened. I don't know who to trust anymore. Her eyes filled with tears. We're your children. We'd never hurt you. I wanted to believe her. God knows I did. But the text messages, the documents, the envelope, they screamed otherwise. My phone buzzed again. I glanced at it beneath the table. The message chilled me to the bone. One of them is lying to you, closest to you. Watch carefully. That afternoon, I tested them. I told my children I would consider signing the estate papers tomorrow. My son's eyes lit up with triumph, while my daughter looked almost conflicted. She squeezed my hand as though trying to warn me without words. As night fell, the house grew still. I sat in my room, staring at the ceiling, listening to every creak and groan of the floorboards. Somewhere down the hall, a hushed conversation floated through the air. My son's voice, low and urgent. She'll sign tomorrow. Just be patient. A pause. Then my daughter's whisper. And if she doesn't? Silence. Then my son's reply, chilling and flat. We'll make sure she does. My heart hammered in my chest. I clutched the envelope tighter, the edges digging into my skin. Whoever was sending those texts wasn't lying. They were circling me like wolves, waiting for me to stumble, and I had no one to turn to. That night, as I locked my bedroom door and slid the envelope under the mattress, one thought echoed louder than the storm raging outside. If my husband truly was alive, he was the only one I could trust. But if he wasn't, Then I was alone in a house full of enemies wearing familiar faces. And when the next message arrived, "Meet me tomorrow night. I'll give you proof." I realized my nightmare was only just beginning. The morning sun streamed faintly through the curtains, but it did little to warm the house. My hands were cold as I retrieved the envelope from its hiding spot under my mattress. Sleep had been a lost cause. Every creak of the floorboards, every whisper of the wind against the shutters, felt like someone moving through the house, waiting for me to let my guard down. I spread the contents across the bed again, photographs, scribbled notes, documents. But this time I looked closer, not with grief-clouded eyes, but with the suspicion gnawing at my gut. One photo in particular made my breath hitch. It was my husband standing outside a bank, dated just 2 weeks before his supposed death. He looked healthy, smiling, his suit pressed, and scrawled in his handwriting at the bottom, "Keep this safe." I pressed the photo against my chest, 1,000 questions tumbling through my mind. Why had he left me this? Why hadn't he told me anything? And why did the text messages sound so much like his voice? Sharp, commanding, protective, yet come from nowhere. The notes were worse. Half-legible scribbles on yellowed paper. Funds hidden. Trust broken. Protect her at all costs. Protect who? Me? From what? The documents were the most damning. Bank statements with numbers so large I had to blink to make sure I was seeing them right. Withdrawals, transfers, accounts I didn't know existed, all signed with my husband's name, and dates that didn't match his supposed death. My heart thudded painfully. He had either faked his death, or someone was forging his signature. Either way, the truth was tangled, and I was the one caught in the middle. Downstairs, I heard the low murmur of voices. My son, my daughter, and my husband's sister. I froze, straining to hear. "She's stalling," my son muttered, his tone clipped. "If she doesn't sign soon, we'll be stuck." "Push harder," his aunt replied. "She's weak right now. Grief makes people pliable. Just keep insisting. Don't let her think too much." My daughter's voice softer, trembling. "But what if she doesn't want to? What if—" "Then you make her want to," the aunt snapped. "Do you understand? This isn't optional." I pressed my hand to my mouth, stifling the gasp rising in my throat. My daughter's hesitation gave me a sliver of hope. But the others, their voices dripped with calculation, not grief. The text message was right. I was surrounded by wolves. At lunch, the pressure resumed. My son slid the folder across the table again. "Mom, we need this done. Today." His tone wasn't gentle anymore. It was sharp, commanding. I set my fork down, meeting his gaze. "What exactly is in these papers?" He hesitated, then smiled thinly. "Estate transfers, property rights, bank access. It's just legal formalities." I leaned back. "If it's just formalities, then you won't mind me having my lawyer look at them first." His jaw clenched. "That'll just delay things." "Then let them be delayed," I said firmly. The air thickened with tension. My daughter fiddled with her napkin, eyes darting between us. The aunt pursed her lips, her smile brittle. "You're making this harder than it has to be," my son muttered, his voice low. I swallowed hard, hiding the tremor in my hands. Better hard than wrong. That evening, alone in my room, I pulled out the bank statement again. Something gnawed at me about the numbers. I grabbed a magnifying glass from the drawer, a silly habit of mine for crosswords, and scanned the document line by line. There it was. A withdrawal of $50,000 made just 3 days before the accident that supposedly killed him. But the location? A city hours away from where he supposedly died. I shivered. If he had really been alive then, where had he gone? And why hadn't he come back? The phone buzzed. "You're close. Look deeper into the withdrawals. They tell the truth." I typed back for the first time. "Who are you?" No response. just the silence of a house full of whispers I no longer trusted. The next day I drove to the bank. My hands shook as I slid the statement across the counter to the teller. "I need to understand this transaction," I said quietly. The teller typed, frowned at her screen. "This account is restricted. I can't share details unless you're listed." I leaned closer. "I'm his wife. He's dead." My throat tightened around the word. Her eyes softened, but her voice remained firm. "I'm sorry, ma'am. It's flagged. Only an authorized party can access it." "Authorized party?" I asked, my pulse racing. "Yes." She lowered her voice. "Someone else has joint access." My legs nearly buckled. Joint access? To my husband's secret account? I stumbled out of the bank, clutching my purse, the world spinning. When I arrived home, the house was too quiet. My daughter's door was closed. My son's car wasn't in the driveway. My husband's sister's perfume still lingered in the air, though she was gone. On the kitchen table sat the folder again, this time opened wide. My name highlighted on line after line, waiting for my signature. Beside it, a sticky note in my son's handwriting. "Don't make us beg." A chill ran through me. That night, the storm broke inside my house. I confronted my daughter first. She sat on her bed, her face pale, her hands twisting the hem of her sweater. "Why are you pressuring me?" I demanded. "Do you even know what's in those papers?" Tears filled her eyes. "I don't know everything. They just said, it's important, that Dad wanted it." "Did he?" I pressed. "Or are you doing this because they told you to?" She sobbed, burying her face in her hands. "I don't know, Mom. I don't know what's true anymore." My heart broke for her. Maybe she was caught in their web too. But then the door slammed, and my son's voice thundered through the hallway. "Why are you filling her head with doubts?" he barked, storming into the room. "You're ruining everything." "I'm protecting myself," I shot back. He sneered. "From your own family? You're losing it." "No," I said, my voice steady. "I think I'm finally seeing clearly." For a moment his mask slipped. His eyes hardened, cold and sharp. "You'll regret this." Later that night, as rain lashed against the windows, my phone buzzed again. "They're desperate. Do not sign. Tomorrow. Proof." I stared at the message, my reflection pale in the dark window. My life had become a labyrinth of lies, with danger lurking at every turn. I thought of my husband's smiling photo at the bank, of the hidden accounts, of the joint access no one would admit to, and I realized something terrifying. If my husband truly was alive, he wasn't hiding just from strangers. He was hiding from his own family. That realization carried me into the early hours, trembling in bed with the envelope clutched to my chest. The walls of the house no longer felt like shelter. They felt like traps closing in. And as I drifted into uneasy sleep, one thought echoed in my mind, louder than the storm outside. If I didn't uncover the truth soon, I wouldn't survive long enough to know it. I couldn't shake the bank teller's words from my mind. This account has joint access. Joint access. Someone else had been withdrawing from my husband's hidden account. Someone else had a key to the life he kept buried from me. The envelope on my bed no longer felt like a gift of protection. It felt like a ticking bomb, waiting for me to uncover the wrong thread and blow everything apart. That morning I brewed coffee, though I could hardly swallow a sip. My daughter shuffled into the kitchen, eyes red from crying, her shoulders hunched. She gave me a timid smile before retreating with her mug. My son wasn't home. Neither was his aunt. For once, the house felt empty enough for me to breathe. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at my husband's framed photo on the wall. His eyes crinkled in the picture, his smile easy. But in my mind, a flood of memories I had once dismissed now screamed for attention. Late-night calls where he slipped out onto the porch and lowered his voice. Business trips with vague destinations. The way he sometimes came home smelling of expensive cologne he didn't wear for me. And the most damning memory. That night, 6 months ago, when I found him pacing in the garage, whispering furiously into his phone. She doesn't know. She can't know. When I asked who he was talking about, he startled, snapping at me that it was just work. He'd slammed the phone down so fast I didn't even see the number. Back then, I had chosen silence. Marriage teaches you which battles to fight, and I thought that one wasn't worth it. But now, sitting in the half-empty kitchen, my hands trembling around my mug, I realized that conversation might have been the first crack in the mask he wore. I needed answers. And there was only one person I could think to ask. Mrs. Callahan. She was more than just the nosy neighbor across the street. She had been around since before my marriage. She'd watched my children grow up, and she had a way of noticing things others ignored. I crossed the street, envelope tucked into my purse. Her door opened before I even knocked. "Linda," she said softly, her eyes warm but cautious. "I was wondering when you'd come." Her words sent a chill down my spine. She ushered me inside. The scent of cinnamon rolls thick in the air. We sat at her small round table, lace cloth draped across it, a candle flickering between us. "You've been watching," I said quietly. Her eyes flickered to the purse at my side. "And you've been carrying something you don't trust anyone else to see." I swallowed. "Did you notice anything strange before he died?" Her lips pressed thin. "Strange isn't the word. Dangerous is." She leaned closer, her voice dropping. "He met with people late at night. Different cars parked outside your home. Men I didn't recognize. I thought maybe it was business. But the way he looked around, the way he carried himself, no, Linda. He was hiding something, and it wasn't small." I clutched my mug tighter, my pulse racing. "Did you ever see who?" She shook her head. "Only shadows. But once I heard him. From my porch. He said, 'If she finds out, it'll all fall apart.'" The words punched me in the chest. Mrs. Callahan reached across the table, squeezing my hand. "I don't know what he left you with, dear. But whatever it is, you need to be careful. Not everyone grieving him wants you safe." Her eyes searched mine, as though she already knew the half of it. When I returned home, the house was empty again. My daughter had left a note saying she'd gone to the library. My son and his aunt were gone with O. I finally had a moment of peace. I spread the envelope's contents across my bed once more. I studied every line of the bank documents, every margin note my husband had scribbled. Then I saw it, a series of numbers written faintly in pencil at the bottom of one page. 04/2/1990. It looked like a date, April 12th, 1990, our wedding anniversary, and scrawled beneath it, "Meet me where it began." My breath caught. Where it began. That little park bench by the river, where he'd proposed to me. The same bench where we'd sat as nervous newlyweds dreaming about a future we thought we could build together. Before the lies. Before the shadows. My phone buzzed. Tomorrow, midnight, where it began. Proof. I clutched the phone, my body trembling. Whoever was sending these messages knew everything, not just about the bank, but about our most intimate moments. That night I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. I paced the floor, torn between fear and desperate need for answers. What if it was a trap? What if my son, my husband's sister, had somehow intercepted the texts and were luring me into danger? But what if it wasn't? What if my husband was alive waiting for me? At 11:30 I grabbed my coat, stuffed the envelope into my purse, and slipped out into the night. The house creaked as though it knew I was leaving behind its suffocating secrets. The drive was long, the road slick with mist. The town was quiet, asleep, the only sound the hum of my tires and the pounding of my heart. When I reached the park, the world seemed frozen. The old wooden bench sat beneath the lamplight, worn and weathered but still standing, like me. I stepped out, the night air biting against my skin. My breath clouded in front of me as I walked slowly toward the bench, each step echoing in the silence. Then I saw it. A small flash drive taped beneath the bench. I ripped it free, my hands shaking, my eyes darting to the shadows. But no one stepped out. No one spoke. The only sound was the whisper of the river, the rustle of leaves. I looked around desperately. Hello? Who's there? Silence. My phone buzzed. Now you know where to start. Don't let them see it. My chest tightened. My pulse roared in my ears. I clutched the flash drive in my palm, feeling the weight of everything pressing down on me. If this held proof of what my husband had been doing, or proof that he was still alive, then it was more dangerous than anything in that envelope. I tucked it into my purse and hurried back to my car. Every shadow now a threat. Every gust of wind a warning. When I started the engine, headlights flared behind me. A car I hadn't noticed before lit up the dark parking lot. It didn't move, just sat there, watching. I gripped the wheel tighter and drove off, my eyes glued to the mirror. The car followed for 3 blocks before vanishing into a side street. By the time I reached home, my hands were shaking so badly I could barely fit the key into the lock. Inside, the house was dark, quiet, too quiet, and sitting on the kitchen counter was the estate folder again, neatly arranged, pen resting on top. But this time, there was something new. A sticky note. We know where you went. I dropped the pen, my knees threatening to give out. The midnight meeting hadn't been a secret. They were watching me, every move, every breath. And now, I had the flash drive that might hold the truth they were desperate to bury. As I locked myself in my room, clutching both the envelope and the drive, one thought pulsed through me stronger than fear itself. This isn't just about inheritance anymore. It's about survival. Mine. I didn't sleep that night. The sticky note on the folder, "We know where you went," was still stuck to the pen when I locked myself in my room. My hands shook as I peeled it off and tore it into shreds, though I knew the warning wasn't so easily destroyed. They knew. Whoever they were, my son, my in-laws, someone else, they knew I had gone to the park. They knew I had picked something up. And if they knew that much, it was only a matter of time before they figured out what I was hiding under my pillow. The flash drive. It was small, black, nondescript, but in my palm, it felt heavier than a coffin. By morning, the house was awake with noise again. My son stomped around, his voice sharp and clipped on the phone. My daughter's softer tones were threaded with nerves. The aunt's laughter floated through the hall, brittle as glass. I stayed in my room, pretending to be asleep. When the house finally emptied, my son leaving in a rush, my daughter slipping out quietly, the aunt driving away with her perfume trailing behind her, I locked the door and powered on my laptop. For a long moment, I just stared at the flash drive. My chest rose and fell in shallow breaths. Then I pushed it in. The screen flickered. A folder popped open. Inside were dozens of files, each labeled with dates and names. Some were spreadsheets filled with numbers, transactions, bank codes. Others were audio files. A few were video recordings. I clicked the first audio file. Static. Then my husband's voice. "If you're hearing this, Linda, then I've failed." His voice cracked on the last word. "I don't know how much time I have left. They're closing in." My blood ran cold. They think they can use me. They think I'll hand it all over, but I won't. Not while I have you. Protect yourself. Don't let them trick you into signing anything. If I don't make it back, it means one of them won. I covered my mouth with both hands, tears streaming down my cheeks. It was him, his voice, his warning. The second file loaded automatically. Another recording, but this time not addressed to me. "Transfer completed," a man's voice said, gruff and impatient. "The account's under the secondary authorization. She'll never see it coming." Then my husband again. She's my wife. She'll find out. The man laughed darkly. Not if she doesn't live long enough. The file ended with a click. I sat frozen, the room spinning. The next file was a video. My trembling fingers hovered over the trackpad before finally clicking it. The screen showed my husband sitting in a darkened room, his face pale, sweat glistening on his forehead. Papers were scattered behind him. "I'm not dead," he whispered hoarsely. "Not yet. But if they announce it, don't believe them. They've been planning this using my name, my accounts, and they'll come for you next, Linda. They'll say it's just signatures, just papers. Don't give them control." His eyes darted to the side, fear flickering across his features. "I don't know who to trust anymore. Even—" He cut himself off, staring straight into the camera. "Even family." The screen went black. I shut the laptop with a snap, pressing my palms against it as though I could hold the truth inside. My heart hammered so hard I thought it might burst. He was alive. At least he had been when he made those recordings. And whoever was circling me now, my son, my in-laws, they were part of the betrayal. The sound of a car pulling into the driveway jolted me from my spiral, tires crunching gravel, a door slamming, heavy footsteps. I yanked the flash drive from the laptop, shoved it back into my purse, and locked everything away just as the front door opened. "Mom?" My son's voice echoed up the stairs. I forced my tone steady. "Yes?" He climbed up, his footsteps heavy, deliberate. "We need to talk." My stomach churned. When he appeared at the doorway, he leaned against the frame, arms crossed. His eyes flicked to my laptop, then back to me. "You've been busy?" I swallowed hard. "I've been grieving." He smirked. "Grief doesn't look like that." He tilted his head toward the laptop. I forced a small smile. "I was writing. It helps me." For a long moment, he just stared at me, his gaze cold and calculating. Then he nodded. "Don't do anything stupid, Mom. Dad trusted me with all of this. You don't need to worry yourself." With that, he left. But his words lingered. Dad trusted me. Trusted him to do what? Betray his own mother? That night I sat in my locked room again, the flash drive burning like a secret in my purse. I replayed my husband's words over and over. Don't sign anything. Protect yourself. Even family can't be trusted. I wanted to believe my children were innocent. I wanted to believe grief made them act strangely, that desperation for stability made them push me to sign. But the recordings told a different story, and the note on the folder proved someone was watching me closely. At midnight, my phone buzzed. A new message. "Good. You found the drive. Next step tomorrow. Same place. Midnight. Come alone." I stared at the screen, my pulse hammering. Whoever this was, whoever had left the flash drive, wanted me to come again. But could I risk it? The following day I tried to act normal. I cooked breakfast, though my appetite was gone. I watered the plants. I even chatted with my daughter, who seemed softer, almost guilty, as though she wanted to say something but couldn't. But my son was different. His temper was shorter, his words clipped. He watched me too closely. When I left the room, I felt his eyes burning into my back. By evening, I knew I couldn't let him see me leave again. At 11:30, I slipped out the back door, my coat pulled tight, my purse slung over my shoulder. The streets were silent, the mist heavier than before. I drove with my headlights low, every shadow on the road making my chest tighten. When I reached the park, my stomach twisted. The bench was empty this time. No envelope, no flash drive. Just the cold wood glistening with dew. My phone buzzed. "Look under the third plank." My hands shook as I crouched, prying at the old wood. My fingers brushed paper, a folded note sealed in a plastic bag. I ripped it open under the lamplight. Inside was a single line, written in my husband's handwriting. If they find this, you're in danger. Leave the house. My knees gave out. I sat on the damp ground, clutching the note, the weight of it crushing me. Leave the house? Where would I go? How could I leave my daughter? And what did he mean? If they find this. I stumbled back to my car, the note shaking in my hand. And when I started the engine, my headlights illuminated something that froze me in place. A car, parked just a few yards away, headlights off, windows tinted, watching me. I drove home fast, my chest heaving, tears streaming. When I pulled into the driveway, the house was dark. But as I stepped inside, the smell of my husband's cologne hit me, sharp, expensive, unmistakable. My heart stopped. I hadn't smelled it in weeks. Hello? I whispered into the dark. Silence. But on the kitchen table, the estate folder sat open again, a pen placed neatly on top, and another sticky note, this one in block letters. Sign it now. I backed away slowly, clutching my purse, the flash drive still hidden inside. My body shook from head to toe. The walls of the house no longer felt like home. They felt like a trap, closing tighter with every breath. And I realized, with horrifying clarity, that my husband's message hadn't been exaggerated. I wasn't just in danger. I was already living inside it. By the next morning, my nerves were threadbare. I hadn't slept. My hands trembled as I buttered a piece of toast I had no appetite for. The house was silent, too silent, until the door creaked and my son appeared. He was already dressed in a pressed shirt, his jaw clean-shaven, his eyes sharp. He didn't even greet me. He walked straight to the counter, picked up the estate folder, and dropped it onto the table in front of me. Mom. His voice was clipped, impatient. Enough games. You're signing this today. I stared at the folder, my chest tightening. No. His jaw clenched, a muscle ticking. Mom. I raised my voice, louder than I meant. I said no. The sound echoed through the kitchen, louder than the clink of cutlery or the hum of the refrigerator. My daughter padded in from the hallway, her hair messy, eyes wide. She froze at the sight of us. What's going on? She whispered. Her brother turned to her, his face taut with frustration. She's stalling. She won't sign. We need those documents done. I stood, my hands shaking but my voice firm. Why do you need them done so badly? Why are you pushing me like this? Whose words are you repeating, yours? Or your father's? The question hung in the air like smoke. My daughter's lips parted. Her eyes darted to me, then to her brother. For a moment I saw fear flash across her face. Not of me, but of him. Mom, she whispered. Don't. Her warning was cut off when he slammed his palm onto the table. The plates rattled, the toast slid to the floor. His voice cracked like thunder. You think you know everything, don't you? You think Dad trusted you? He didn't. He trusted me. Me. The fury in his eyes stole my breath. My daughter stepped forward, her voice trembling. Stop it, please. She doesn't deserve this. He rounded on her, his finger jabbing. You stay out of this. You've been useless since the beginning. Tears welled in her eyes. I never wanted this. I never wanted any of it. I looked between them, my heart breaking. What is going on? Tell me the truth. Before either could answer, the doorbell rang. We all froze. The chime echoed through the house, sharp and cutting like a warning. My son cursed under his breath, storming toward the door. I followed, heart pounding. When he yanked it open, my husband's sister stood there. Her smile was tight, her lipstick smeared as though she'd put it on too quickly. She held a folder of her own. Good morning, she said sweetly, her eyes flicking over me, then to my son. Is it done? He shook his head, his jaw tight. She's refusing. The aunt's eyes narrowed. She stepped inside, her heels clicking against the floor, her perfume filling the air like poison. She turned to me, her smile brittle. "Linda, darling, I know this is hard, but the sooner you sign, the sooner you can rest. Don't drag this out." I crossed my arms, summoning courage from somewhere deep inside. "Why are you so desperate for me to sign something you won't even explain?" Her smile slipped, sharpness flashing in her eyes. "Because that's what your husband wanted." I stepped closer, lowering my voice. "Is it? Or is that what you want?" For the first time, she faltered. Her gaze flicked to my son, then back to me. I pulled the flash drive from my purse, holding it high like a dagger. "I know what you've been hiding. I've heard his voice. I've seen the transfers. And if you think I'm going to sign away everything without answers, you're mistaken." The room went silent. My son's face drained of color. The aunt's lips parted, her eyes wide. My daughter gasped softly. Then my son lunged for me. "Give it to me," he shouted, his hands reaching. I stumbled back, clutching the drive to my chest. My daughter darted between us, shoving him away. "Stop! You're scaring her!" he snarled, his eyes blazing. "She doesn't understand what's at stake." I raised my voice, louder than the storm raging in my chest. "Then explain it to me. Explain why you need my signature so badly. Explain why your father's accounts had someone else's name on them." The aunt's voice cracked like a whip. "Enough!" The room froze. She straightened her jacket, her eyes cold. "Fine. If you want the truth so badly. Linda, here it is. Your husband wasn't who you thought he was. He was working with people far bigger than you could imagine. And when he realized he couldn't control it, he panicked. That's why he hid money. That's why he disappeared." I clutched the drive tighter. "So you admit it? He's alive." Her smile was cruel. "Alive. Or dead. It doesn't matter. What matters is the papers. Once they're signed, this ends." I shook my head. "It ends when I say it ends." My daughter tugged at my sleeve, whispering urgently, "Mom, please, don't give them anything." Her voice trembled, but there was strength beneath it. The same strength I once carried before years of marriage and motherhood had worn me thin. For the first time, I saw her not as my little girl, but as an ally. My son's face twisted with rage. "You don't understand. If she doesn't sign, we lose everything. Everything Dad built," I shot back. "Or everything you stole." The flash of guilt in his eyes told me I wasn't wrong. The confrontation spiraled, voices rising, plates clattering as hands slammed against tables. At one point, my son grabbed the folder, thrusting it toward me. "Just sign it, right now." My daughter shoved him back, shouting, "She said no." And in that moment, I realized the war wasn't just between me and them. It was splitting my children apart too. One clinging to greed and control, the other torn between loyalty and truth. I pressed the flash drive to my heart, my voice steady. "I won't sign. And if you push me again, I'll take this to the police." The aunt sneered, her eyes glittering with venom. "Do that and you'll regret it." But even as she spoke, I could see it, the cracks forming. My son's impatience, my daughter's defiance, the aunt's desperation. The truth was bleeding out, and soon it would drown them all. That night I sat in my locked room again, the drive hidden under my pillow, my daughter asleep down the hall, my son's footsteps pacing like a predator outside my door. My phone buzzed, a new message. "Good. Don't give them anything. Tomorrow you'll learn everything. Midnight. Same place." I clutched the phone, my chest heaving. The war inside my house was only beginning. But tomorrow night, at midnight, the truth that had been stalking me since the funeral would finally step into the light. And when it did, I wasn't sure whether it would save me or destroy me. By dawn, I knew one thing. I couldn't keep living like prey in my own house. The pacing footsteps outside my door, the estate papers shoved in my face, the sticky notes left like threats. All of it told me the wolves were growing desperate. If I didn't act, they'd eventually corner me. so I decided to corner them first. At breakfast, I kept my voice calm, my expression tired, as though I'd finally surrendered. "I've thought about it," I said, stirring my coffee slowly. "Maybe you're right. Maybe dragging this out is only making things worse." My son's eyes snapped up from his phone. "You'll sign?" I forced a weary smile. "Yes, tonight, after dinner." His lips curled into the faintest smirk. "Good. That's good, Mom." My daughter froze with her spoon halfway to her mouth. Her eyes darted to me, wide, searching. I gave her the smallest shake of my head, the kind only a mother's child would understand. Her spoon clattered back into the bowl. The aunt reached over, patting my hand. Her palm was clammy. "You've made the right choice, Linda, you'll see. Everything will be simpler." But beneath the table, my fists clenched. Tonight, I'd make them show their true faces. I spent the day preparing. When they weren't watching, I slipped my phone under my mattress and set the recorder to run. I also borrowed a tiny voice recorder from Mrs. Callahan across the street. She didn't ask questions, only pressed it into my palm with a look that said she already suspected. By late afternoon, the papers were neatly stacked on the dining table. A pen lay across the top, and hidden under my sleeve was the recorder, its tiny red light blinking. Dinner was a performance. The food tasted like ash in my mouth, but I smiled, nodded, laughed when required. My son poured wine generously into my glass, his eyes never leaving me. The aunt told story after story, her laugh forced, brittle. My daughter hardly touched her plate, her eyes glued to mine, silently begging me not to go through with it. When the plates were cleared, my son pushed the folder toward me. "Now, Mom, before anything else distracts you." I took the pen in my trembling hand. The weight of it was unbearable, heavier than the flash drive, heavier than my fear. I let the silence stretch, the sound of my heartbeat pounding in my ears. Then I slowly lowered the pen to the paper. But instead of signing, I whispered, "Tell me what this really is." The aunt's smile faltered. "It's just paperwork." My hand hovered over the line. "Then say it, out loud. Tell me what I'm signing." My son's jaw tightened. "Mom, no," I snapped, my voice sharp, cutting through the tension. "Explain it to me, or I don't sign." For a long, heavy moment, no one moved. Then the aunt sighed, her facade cracking. "It's authorization. Transfer of assets, control of accounts, the villa, the trust." I swallowed hard. "All of it to you?" "To the family," she corrected quickly, but her eyes glittered with greed. My son slammed his palm on the table. "We don't have time for this, just sign, damn it." My daughter flinched, her voice trembling. "Mom, don't..." But I held the pen over the paper, pretending to scrawl my name. Their eyes followed every movement, their breaths held in anticipation. And then my son whispered, thinking I couldn't hear, "Once it's signed, she's finished. She won't have anything left." The aunt smirked. "Not even the house. She'll be out before the month's end." My blood froze, but my hand stayed steady, the recorder capturing every word. I dropped the pen suddenly, the sharp clatter echoing in the room. "Thank you," I said coldly, my voice shaking with rage. "That's all I needed." Their faces paled as I slid my sleeve up, revealing the recorder strapped to my wrist. The blinking red light glared at them like a warning. My son lunged across the table, but my daughter shoved her chair back, blocking him. "Enough," she cried. "I won't let you hurt her anymore." The aunt's voice shrieked, venom spilling. "You stupid girl, you've ruined everything." I stood, my chest heaving, holding the recorder high. "No, you ruined everything the moment you tried to steal from me, from him." My son's fists clenched, his face red with fury. "You don't understand, Mom. You were never supposed to find out. Dad trusted me, not you. He said you were weak." The words cut, but I held steady. "If I'm weak, why are you the one trembling?" He faltered, his voice breaking. The aunt hissed, "Destroy that recorder or I swear." But I cut her off, my voice sharp as steel. "If you touch me, this goes straight to the police. Every word you've spoken tonight, every threat, every plan, you'll all go down together." The room erupted. My son shouted, my daughter sobbed, the aunt cursed. But I stood my ground, clutching the recorder like a weapon. And beneath the chaos, one truth blazed clear. They weren't grieving my husband. They were circling like vultures, trying to strip the bones of everything he left behind. For the first time since the funeral, I didn't feel powerless. I felt angry, righteously, dangerously angry. And I wasn't going to let them win. That night, as they retreated in defeat, muttering threats and promises of fixing this, I locked myself in my room. The recorder lay on the table, the audio file safe. Beside it, I placed the flash drive. 2 weapons. 2 truths. Tomorrow night, at midnight, the final message said I'd learn everything. But now I wasn't just waiting to learn. I was preparing to fight. The house was suffocating that night. Every shadow pressed against me. Every creak in the wood sounded like footsteps creeping closer. But I didn't sleep. I sat at my desk, the flash drive in one hand, the recorder in the other, knowing that between the two of them, I held enough truth to bring the whole rotten plan crashing down. Still, one question consumed me, louder than all the threats and betrayals. Was my husband alive? The message on my phone had been clear. Tomorrow, midnight, same place. I couldn't ignore it. Not now. Not after everything. So, at 11:30 the following night, I slipped out once more. The streets were drenched in mist, the world hushed as though holding its breath. My hands gripped the wheel, knuckles white, my eyes flicking to the mirror every few seconds, terrified I'd see headlights trailing me again. When I reached the park, the lamplight glistened on the old bench. This time, though, someone was waiting. A figure leaned against the bench, shoulders hunched, a baseball cap pulled low over their face. I froze, my chest tightening. Then the figure looked up, and my heart nearly stopped. "Linda," the voice rasped. My husband's voice. I stumbled forward, my legs weak, my breath catching in my throat. "God, is it really you?" He stepped closer, his face illuminated by the yellow glow of the lamppost. He was thinner, paler, his once dark hair streaked with gray. But it was him. The man I had buried. The man I had mourned. Tears blurred my vision. "You're alive." He caught me as I swayed, his hands gripping my arms. "Shh," he whispered urgently. "Not so loud. They're watching." I pulled back, searching his face for answers. "What is happening? Why are you alive? Why didn't you tell me? Why?" "Because if you knew," he cut in sharply, "they would have killed you too." His words sank like lead in my stomach. We sat on the bench, the night wrapping around us like a shroud. He explained in broken pieces, his voice hoarse, eyes darting to the shadows. "They tried to use me, your son, my sister. They worked with men you don't know. Dangerous men. They wanted my accounts, my pension, everything tied to the contracts. When I refused, they threatened me, told me I'd lose you, lose the kids. So I disappeared. Faked it. It was the only way to buy time." My hands trembled in my lap. "And you left me to grieve? To bury an empty coffin?" His jaw clenched. "It was the only way to protect you." I stared at him, my heart torn in two. Relief battled with fury, grief with love. "Do you have any idea what they've done to me? The pressure, the threats, the lies?" His eyes softened with guilt. "I never meant for you to suffer like this, but you're stronger than I thought. You found the drive. You kept it safe." I nodded stiffly, and I recorded them. They admitted everything. For the first time he smiled, not the easy, warm smile I once knew, but something sharper, colder. "Good. Then we finally have what we need." Before I could ask more, his hand clamped around mine. "But Linda, you can't go back tonight." My chest tightened. What do you mean? They know you're close. They'll try something. You need to leave the house now. Take the drive and the recorder. Don't give them a chance. I shook my head. My daughter. She'll follow you when it's safe, he interrupted, his tone harsh. Trust me on this. But if you stay tonight, you might not see tomorrow. Tears streamed down my cheeks. And you? What about you? He looked away, his face shadowed. I can't come with you. Not yet. But I'll finish this. I'll make sure they pay. He stood abruptly, pulling his cap lower. Go. Now. Wait. I clutched his sleeve, desperate. How do I know you won't vanish again? How do I know this isn't just another lie? He leaned close, his lips brushing my ear. Because this time I need you to survive. And before I could say another word, he melted into the shadows, leaving me trembling under the lamplight. The drive home was a blur. My hands shook on the wheel, my chest heaving. I kept glancing at the passenger seat, half expecting him to appear again, half fearing headlights would trap me. When I finally pulled into the driveway, the house loomed like a predator, dark, silent, waiting. I slipped inside, clutching my purse tight, every sense screaming at me to run. Then I saw it. On the kitchen counter, the estate folder sat open again. But this time, there weren't just papers inside. There were photographs of me, sitting at the park bench, talking to him. My blood ran cold. They knew. I stumbled back, my breath shallow, the purse slipping from my hands. I didn't hear my son until it was too late. Where were you, Mom? His voice slithered from the shadows, low and venomous. I spun, my heart leaping into my throat. He stepped into the light, his face twisted with rage. You think you're clever? Meeting with him, keeping secrets from me? His eyes burned. Do you know what you've done? My daughter appeared in the doorway, her face pale. Stop it, leave her alone. But he ignored her, his eyes locked on me. You're going to sign those papers, now, and then you're going to hand over whatever he gave you. I shook my head, clutching my purse. No. His jaw clenched, his hands fists at his sides. Don't make me force you. My daughter rushed to my side, gripping my arm. Mom, run. And in that instant, I knew. My husband had been right. Tonight wasn't safe. Not for me. Not for her. I grabbed the purse and bolted up the stairs, my daughter at my heels, my son shouting behind us. We slammed the bedroom door, locking it, my breath ragged. The house vibrated with his fists pounding against the wood. Open this door, Mom. You're ruining everything. I clutched the flash drive in one hand, the recorder in the other, tears streaking my face. My daughter whispered, trembling, What do we do? I held her close, my voice steady despite the storm outside. We survive. The pounding grew louder. The door rattled on its hinges. And for the first time since the funeral, I wasn't just grieving. I was ready to fight. The pounding on the bedroom door went on for what felt like hours, each blow splintering not just the wood, but my faith in the boy I once cradled in my arms. Open this door, Mom, my son roared. You think you're clever? You think you can play games with me? I sat on the bed, clutching the flash drive in one hand and the recorder in the other, my daughter trembling beside me. Her hand gripped mine so tightly her nails dug crescents into my skin. Mom, she whispered, tears streaking her cheeks. He's not going to stop. No, I said quietly, a cold determination settling over me. He's not. And that was when I knew. The time for hiding was over. The following morning I made my move. I rose before dawn, slipped out while the house was still heavy with silence. My daughter followed, her hair hastily pulled into a bun, her eyes dark with exhaustion, but fierce with resolve. We didn't speak as we drove, our breaths fogging the windows, the streets empty as though the world itself knew what was coming. At 9 sharp, I walked into the law office of my husband's old friend, James Carter. He had been his confidant for years, a man with more loyalty to truth than to family. His brows furrowed when he saw me. "Linda, you look—" He stopped short when he saw my daughter's pale face, the recorder in my hands. "What's going on?" I placed the flash drive and the recorder on his desk. "I need you to listen." For an hour, James listened. He played the recordings, his face hardening as my son's voice snarled. "Once it's signed, she's finished. She won't have anything left." He clicked the flash drive open, brows rising as he sifted through documents, bank records, and video files. When my husband's shaky voice filled the room, "I'm not dead. They'll come for her next." James closed his eyes and exhaled sharply. When the last file ended, he leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. "Linda," his voice was grave, "this isn't just family squabbling. This is fraud, forgery, conspiracy, and if your husband's alive—" He shook his head. "This goes beyond the family. There are bigger players here." My throat tightened. "So what do I do?" James looked at me for a long moment. Then his jaw set. "You fight back, and you don't do it quietly." That evening, James arranged a meeting. Not in his office, not in my home, but in a neutral space, the town hall's legal mediation chamber. It was designed for disputes, sterile and unwelcoming, its fluorescent lights humming faintly overhead. My son arrived first, storming in with fury etched across his face. My husband's sister trailed behind him, her perfume wafting ahead like poison, her eyes sharp. My daughter sat beside me, her hand gripping mine. James stood at the head of the table, his voice calm. "We're here to resolve this." My son sneered. "There's nothing to resolve. She just needs to sign." James raised a brow, sliding a recorder across the table. "Interesting, because on this tape, I hear you admitting that once she signs, she's finished." The color drained from my son's face. The aunt hissed. "That's inadmissible." "It's more than admissible." James cut in coldly. "It's evidence of coercion and fraud. And that's before we even get to the forged bank documents." He plugged in the flash drive. The room filled with my husband's trembling voice. "If you're hearing this, Linda, then I've failed. Don't sign anything." My son slammed his fist on the table. "He's lying. He's dead." "Funny," James said, his tone razor sharp, "because this recording was dated after his supposed death. And these bank withdrawals, they have your name listed as secondary authorization." The silence that followed was deafening. My son's mask slipped then. His fury gave way to desperation. "You don't understand. He was going to cut us off. Everything we built, everything we deserved, it was slipping away. We had no choice." I rose slowly, my chair scraping against the floor. My voice trembled, but the words were steel. "No choice but to betray me? To treat me like a fool in my own home? To stand over my husband's coffin while plotting to steal the very life he built?" His eyes flickered. For the first time, he looked small, weak. The aunt spat venom. "Don't play the victim, Linda. You've always been naive. Your husband trusted us to handle things. He knew you couldn't." I turned on her, my rage uncoiling like fire. "If I'm so weak, why are you sitting here caught in your own lies? Why do you need my signature so desperately if everything you've done is legitimate?" Her lips pressed thin, her silence damning. James spoke again, his voice crisp. "Here's how this is going to play out. You two are going to leave Linda alone. Any further pressure, any threats, and I take this evidence straight to the police, you'll be facing fraud charges at minimum. Do you understand?" My son opened his mouth, but James slammed his hand on the table, his voice booming. "Do you understand?" My son deflated, nodding stiffly. The aunt's eyes blazed, but even she knew the fight was over. For now. James leaned back, his eyes softening as he looked at me. "Linda, you've got the power now. Use it wisely, and keep that drive safe. It's your shield." But the reckoning didn't end in that sterile room. Word spread quickly. Whispers in the community about the widow who had caught her own. Family trying to steal everything. About the son who had betrayed his mother. The sister-in-law who had schemed for control. And while their reputations crumbled, mine began to change. No longer the grieving widow. No longer the woman too fragile to handle affairs, but the one who had stood tall against betrayal. That night my daughter and I sat together on the porch. She rested her head on my shoulder, her voice soft. "I'm sorry, Mom, for not speaking up sooner, for letting them push you." I kissed her hair, tears burning my eyes. "You're the reason I survived this. Don't ever forget that." For the first time in weeks, I breathed easier. The wolves had been driven back. But deep down, one truth still gnawed at me. My husband, alive, out there, waiting. And I knew the reckoning wasn't truly over until I found out where he was and whether he intended to come back at all. The weeks after the confrontation passed in a blur. At first, I expected every knock on the door, every ringing phone to bring another threat. But they never came. My son stopped visiting. The aunt vanished into whispers and rumors. The estate folder, once shoved in my face like a weapon, disappeared from the house entirely. For the first time since the funeral, the walls of my home stopped feeling like a trap. They felt like mine again. But peace didn't come easily. Even as the silence settled, my mind spun with questions. About the betrayal, about my children, about my husband, especially him. The evidence was undeniable. The recordings, the documents, the message scrawled in his handwriting. I had seen him, touched him, heard him with my own ears. He was alive, and yet he was gone again. No calls, no messages, no footsteps in the shadows outside my window. Had our meeting at the park been a final farewell? Or was he still out there circling, waiting for the moment to come home? I didn't know. And the not knowing gnawed at me more than the betrayal ever had. One evening I sat on the porch with my daughter. The setting sun painted the sky in golds and purples, cicadas humming in the trees. She leaned against me, her head on my shoulder, her voice soft. "Do you think he'll ever come back?" The question hung in the air, heavy. I took a long breath. "I don't know." She sighed. "I almost don't want him to. Not if it means all this starts again." Her words pierced me, because part of me agreed. The man I loved, the man I buried, the man who had returned in shadows, he wasn't the same anymore. He was tangled in something darker, something I wasn't sure he'd ever escape. Maybe he wasn't meant to come back. Still, I couldn't shake the memories. Him holding me at the park, whispering, "This time I need you to survive." Him looking older, weaker, but his eyes still burning with that fierce determination. If he had vanished to protect me once, maybe he had vanished again for the same reason. And maybe that was love, in its most twisted, painful form. The town whispered about us for months. The widow who had outsmarted her own family, the son who had betrayed her, the husband who had left behind more secrets than memories. Some looked at me with pity, others with respect, a few with envy, as though survival itself was a prize. But I didn't care about whispers anymore. For the first time in years, I was living for myself. I redecorated the house, stripping away the stale scent of grief. I painted the walls bright, hung new curtains, planted flowers in the garden. My daughter helped, her laughter slowly returning, her spirit lighter as the days stretched forward. And in every corner of the house, I tucked away reminders of strength, the recorder, the flash drive, the photographs, not as burdens anymore, but as proof. Proof that I had faced wolves and walked away unbroken. One night, months later, I found myself back at the park. The bench sat beneath the lamplight, weathered and worn, its wood cracked with time. I sat where I had once sat as a young woman, giddy and in love, where he had once dropped to one knee and asked me to build a life with him, where he had returned from the dead, if only for a moment. The river whispered beside me, the lamplight flickering faintly. I waited. For a sound, a shadow, a whisper in the dark. But the night stayed silent. And finally, I stood, brushing tears from my cheeks, my heart heavy but steady. Because I realized something. I didn't need him to return to survive. I already had. Now, when people ask me about those months, the funeral, the betrayal, the secrets, I tell them the truth in fragments. That I buried a man who wasn't dead. That I fought off wolves in my own home. That survival isn't about strength alone, but about refusing to surrender when the world wants you broken. And when they ask the question they always ask, do you think he's still out there? I smile faintly and say the only answer that feels right. I hope so. Because whether he comes back or not, his voice still lives in my head. His warnings, his love, his betrayal, all tangled together in a story only I will ever fully understand. The house is quiet again these days. My daughter and I share laughter in the kitchen. Music drifts through the rooms and the air no longer feels heavy with secrets. But some nights, when the wind rattles the windows, I swear I catch a faint trace of his cologne. And I wonder if maybe, just maybe, he's watching from the shadows still. Not as a ghost, not as a lie, but as a man who couldn't let go. Now tell me, do you think he'll ever come back? Or is Linda destined to live the rest of her life haunted by a man who never truly left? Let me know in the comments if you'd love to find out what happened next. Whether the husband finally returned, or if his shadow was all that remained. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this story so you never miss what's coming next.